morning. We see the fact that about 43% of Nigerian children are engaged in the worst form of child labor, and some of them in the process of all this are also trafficked in and out, even also within the country. This is a conversation we want to look into right now on Rise and Shine. Why do we have these high numbers? That takes it to almost 50% of children in the country being susceptible to child labor. Joining us this morning to look into this, situation that is a dire one is Ime Inyobon Okpabio, who is the head of Public Enlightenment Unit, NAPTIP, Uyo Zonal Command. Of course, NAPTIP is the National Agency for the Prohibition of Trafficking in Persons. Good morning, Ime. Good to have you on the show.
Good morning. Thank you.
Yes, I would have really asked how your journey was, but I know it was a difficult one. And today is on a really, really quick race. Child labor is a problem. And when we talk about child labor, some people do not even understand what child labor entails in the very first place. So I think that's where I'd like us to start from. When we are talking about child labor, what does this mean?
Okay. Child labor is a form of trafficking where a child and a minor, any child under 18 is a minor and has no consent. But when you employ a child who is under 18 to do tasks, sometimes they are employed to work in plantations, sometimes they are employed to work in quarries, sometimes they are employed to work in large farms, and sometimes as domestic servants. So when you look at those ones, you realize that the international labor law provides that anybody under 18 should not be employed. But when you're going to take a child at age 10 and give the child employment, no matter the guise, whether gainful or any way you want to look at it, to offer assistance to her, because as the cloak they come in, they will tell you, we want to give the child assistance. This child, this family is actually very poor and they're suffering and all that. So let the child come on, stay with us, help us do this while we pay so and so fee. That's child labor, where you employ a minor and underage child. Anybody from age 0 to 17, is not up to 18, is a child.
So you're even saying 0 to about 18, and it looks like, because most Nigerians cannot, put their minds to what you're saying. But I have statistics here that even say between the ages of 5 and 11, because I think the current information we're working with is the fact that we have people between this age 5 and 11 working under worse conditions. So even when you say that, I'm one person that likes to reason with English. When you put 5 and 11 working under worst conditions, you're saying that maybe between 12 to 18 there is a form of labor that is not so intense that they may be involved in. But when we say they are involved in worst kinds of labor, what would you call that? Because sometimes, like you said, people come under the cloak of, oh, we want to help the child, let them come and live with us as domestic aid and all that. Let's not even forget how much of these children get violated when they get into people's homes. But is there any possibility within your constitutional knowledge of NAPTIP that says, okay, maybe a child can be given minimal labor of some sort, but not
We don't approve of a child being given labor at all. We believe children from ages 0 to 17 should be dependent on their parents or caregivers for support, not the other way around. But with the issues at hand now, you find out that some people pick up children as, well, I say 0 to 17, that's the minimal age. That's the age for the minor. So you see people come to pick children as young as 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, like as is provided, and they take them home, all in the vein of offering assistance. And these children at those tender ages will have to face a lot of hardship, doing hard chores. Some are on the streets trading, some are on the streets begging. Those are, and then what do you call intense or severe labor? When a 5-year-old is made to wash dishes. In the first instance,
children taking care of children.
Children taking care of children. In the first instance, a child should know, for age 5, how clean are the dishes going to be if given such tasks to perform? But you see them do those things, they get into, they become nannies. A nanny being a baby being a nanny to another baby. Those are the things we see in the homes. And then you have men violating children as young as 3, 4, 5 under their care. Because these ones, they can't say anything. They don't, sometimes don't even understand what is happening to them. So, intense labor, giving a child labor, giving a child what is much more than his age or her age to do. Being frank, the highest you can send a 5-year-old to do in the house is get me a bottle of water from the fridge. Okay, go to the room, get my slippers, get my phone. Those are tiny errands the child can run around the house and happily do it and then come back to you. But when such child is exposed to doing stuff, sweeping the house, mopping the house, taking care of other children, as babysitting another child, when he or she needs to be babysat, needs the attention as a baby too. So those are things we look at. And then some of them are put into conditions where the mistresses will have them wash plates. The other day somebody reported a case where a child played and touched an auntie in the house. She was bending, so I think it was trying to stir Gary. And the child just came and touched the auntie at the back, and the auntie used the spatula to smash the child's head. Why did you touch me on the back while I was doing something? And with the hot Gary on the spatula. So the child cried and cried and cried. When I made inquiries, I realized that child was not a member of that family. They just picked the child up from the mother in the village and asked the child to come and stay around the other baby in the house for companionship. So
and yes, you're manhandling the child. But what are some of the factors that are predisposing children under the ages of 5 to 11 or even to 17, as you have said? What are the predisposing factors?
Oh, it has to do a lot with ignorance on the part of the parents or the caregivers. Every child is supposed to be under somebody's supervision and care till about age 18, when the person is able to make some decisions on her own concerning things, her personal affairs. So when you have parents that think there's nothing wrong with giving my child to stay with my sister, stay with my friend, or stay with somebody for a fee, the person is going to help me send the child to school. So such children are given to those people on thrust that the child is going to be given assistance to be somewhere. So you see, ignorance is a big factor that affects the parents, the caregivers, and the guardians. Another one is poverty. Everybody complains. Most families complain they don't have what it takes to keep the children going. Times are hard. You can hardly afford a meal. So somebody offers to pick your child. Willingly you give the child because you feel the child is going to have food to eat, and then from the child staying there, you're going to have some form of reward or stipend from the person that took the child from you. Another factor, I think, is ignorance of the law. Because if you know what the provisions of the law are, you won't let that be. And then some people know the law, but they can't actually interpret the implications of the law. And then we have another one as a lack of equal opportunities. Unemployment is everywhere. Everybody wants to be employed by the government. Sometimes I come on set to say, well, we are doing our awareness creation. I tell the parents not to rely on government employment always. It will come. But while you're waiting for it to come, why not find something doing? If you find something doing, you have a little business here and there, applying your skills to use, your children will not starve. They will have what to eat. You have what to keep them until that almighty government jobs comes.
Okay, but like in the face of current day reality, it looks like barest minimum by most families is not even keeping up. So, and recently I was faced with a family who has, I think, between 10 to 11 children in the village, and of course they're not doing so much, and so when they give birth in these large numbers, they are pressured to give out these children so that people can help them take care. Like he said, I'll send him to school and all the likes, but the economic realities are biting. Parents do not really have other options. But but yes, I'd like for you to give thoughts to that, but let's go to the end of the law. What are the laws in place against these kinds of activities? Like you said, there is ignorance on the part that we don't even know what the law says. Some other people know what the law says, but like you said, wrong interpretation or the lack of proper interpretation to these laws. If NAPTIP nabs you, what are the measures that NAPTIP is even going to take against you? And let's be honest, in our country, we live in where we are like, okay, the person who is caught is the wrong person. Do we have implementation of these laws to the latter by the stakeholders, who are responsible?
Okay, NAPTIP has a full-fledged legal department. We have the investigation and monitoring department. Those two departments, if there's a case that's reported, if a case is reported to NAPTIP, they swing into action by going for the arrest, the interview of the arrested suspects, because the person is not condemned. It's called the suspect until proved otherwise in court. And then when when they are interviewed and they find the case it actually happened, you're charged to court, and our lawyers are there. We have strong lawyers and we have a strong legal frame to back up whatever we do. Offenses are treated, punishments are spelled out depending on the nature of offense committed. Initially, we used to have paying a fine for a particular offense. For instance, child abuse. I'm not being specific, I'm just saying, for instance, you pay 2 million naira, 200,000, 400,000. But recently, we no longer have fine or jail term or punishment. If you're found guilty or culpable of a particular offense, you are sentenced to jail with a fine.
Wow.
It's no longer or, it is with a fine. So you pay the fine and then you're still sentenced. And we're also now trying to step up some of the punishments for some of the offenses like rape and outright trafficking. We're trying to step up the penalties to make it more stringent, to make them more stringent, so that these perpetrators will know when you go in for it, you're not coming back in the nearest future. So giving somebody who cheated on somebody's child or on another person a jail term of 7 years and then a fine of 500,000, 1 million naira, we felt is not enough. So we have the legal unit that handle these things, and they handle them very well. And we have spelled out law. I missed it. I should have brought the NAPTIP Act, where we have all the conditions, all the punishments, that's the offenses and the punishments, all spelled out clearly. Everything we do is under our acts. Everything we do is under the act.
It sounds good to hear that you're trying to step up, the penalty for these offenses. But beyond stepping up the penalties, is there a way that NAPTIP and other agencies that are involved in curbing, child labor and child trafficking, human trafficking for that matter, is there a way they go into societies to even find, people that are erring against the law? For instance, every now and then we have police patrol around our areas, around our city, maybe looking out for people that are erring. What are the systems in place for us to recognize when a child is in child labor? For instance, if we take a drive into Uyo right now, we are going to see children hawking. We have NAPTIP officials drive by and see these kinds of children. What do you do in such scenarios?
Okay, we go on awareness creation on radio, TV, and then we walk the streets of the towns, go to the villages, because these things are no longer very strong in the cities because of the awareness. But the traffickers seem to have tilted to the villages where they do their business. So we go on awareness creation. We have foot soldiers. We use core members. We have vanguards, NAPTIP vanguards in schools. We have that's vanguard clubs in schools. We have informants. We do whistleblowing policy, where we plant people around who will see things and then report to us. Also, we collaborate or partner with other law enforcement bodies like the DSS, immigration, that is our mother, a close sister, civil defense. In short, NAPTIP is the focal agency in charge of coordinating all other law enforcement bodies to handle cases of trafficking and enforce the law of against human trafficking. So we coordinate those bodies and they make referrals to us when they find cases. Our whistleblowers give us information. We act sometimes on tip-offs. Sometimes we also place ourselves as strategic places. We tell people, when we go out on awareness creation, we tell people what you see your neighbor do. When we bring out the ills, when you see your neighbor do something close to what we are talking about or that has resemblance of what we are talking about, please call NAPTIP, and we spread our phone, our contacts, the hotline all over. Sometimes we even go into giving people our private lines because sometimes they don't want to call the hotline, they want instant reply. Well, we tell them the hotline is there, call, an officer will always be by the phone to pick the phone and then respond promptly. So we partner with sister agencies, NGOs. We use the core members as our foot soldiers, the students all over, and then the traditional rulers in the community, when we go to them, sensitize them on ills of human trafficking, the dangers that await people that are trafficked and all that. We give them the numbers that they can call when they have cases, and that's why we've been having our cases. Our nurses are also on the ground too.
So we'll just look for a way to land this conversation. 45% is a large chunk of numbers. It's a high percentage for us to have children in Nigeria who are, under, severe kinds of child labor, and we are predisposed to trafficking. But we see the fact that as a country, there's been partnership with different, institutions, especially internationally also, and the adoption and ratification of the ILO conventions, 138 and 182, to enact the Child Rights Act, to domesticate the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child. So just in summary, do you think that with the adoption of this ratification and some of the systems that you have in place, do you see Nigeria moving out of this extent of numbers anytime soon? Are we making progress with how much we are ridding the society of child labor?
Okay, NAPTIP, Nigeria. Trafficking is not just a Nigerian thing, it's a global issue. Now, we are working, there's a kind of boom in population the world over. And then, as the population increases, people tend to adapt more to crime, easy means of making money. So we are working seriously. Like I said earlier, if you come to the cities, the children you find on the streets trading, sometimes they are living with their parents. They are not people's servants or trafficked down to the city to hawk. They live with their parents. I spoke somewhere and I mentioned it, that some parents are even ignorant of the fact that the child that is underage is not supposed to go into trading, street trading, or any form of hawking. The child is supposed to be kept in the house and fended for, not the child going out on the street to make money and then come back to fend for the family. So this thing is in the increase. We are fighting. It's a crime, an established crime, a syndicate kind of thing. It's not easy to just come up and say we have stopped it, but we are making progress. They are drifting from the urban cities where the noise is really made to the hinterlands. So we are now entering the hinterland, local society, communities. Though the people in the communities find it difficult to believe that this trafficking exists. You tell them stories and they don't believe that there's trafficking. They believe that that person has come to pick up a child from her, wants to give her some assistance or some help. So we are making progress. We are making progress. Before now, after the abolition of the slave trade, there was a kind of tranquility, but we understand that there were still some clandestine movements of people from Africa or from place to place. But now it has become so open that because it is a lucrative business, there's prevalence of trafficking, but we are working hard. And I think the number is reducing by the day because if you come to different commands, either state commands like zone offices or zonal commands as ours, you realize that on daily basis, children are picked, are rescued from traffickers on daily basis. And it's not just children, women,
girls,
adults who are supposed to know what is happening, allow themselves to be trafficked because of greed, because of wanting to get there and then be that classy
well,
woman.
Some people are just trying to grapple with the economic realities. It's just basically a matter of having what to eat and go by, but for the day. But I think this is literally all we can take on you today. But would always love to have these kinds of conversations. Like you said, driving the awareness is very important. Less and less people have this information out there. So we want to appreciate you very much, Eme Nyobo Nkwapio, for coming on the show this morning.